There is a worship service that exists in the tranquility of nature, a connection with creation that you feel when you really stop and listen, see the forest through the trees, and commune with her. Almost 8 hours by car, some 475 miles north of our southern border, there is an attack underway on American families, communities, and Mother Nature. Hidden beneath the dense canopy of deciduous trees is a prostitute of sorts, and those who profit by selling her will stop at nothing to exploit her. Sold and promoted for her non-addictive, even medicinal advantages, what lies behind the veil of this seductress is far different than what she first appears to be. She is a harlot, and her name is Mary Jane.
I think that the majority of the public really doesn't know what we see, and they don't really know what we deal with. They don't know the immensity of it. They don't realize that when you look up in the mountains here in our area in California and it's green, that is highly likely that there's marijuana growing there.
We estimate that in the state of California, there's approximately 2,000 clandestine marijuana gardens that are DTO grows, basically cartel grows, on public lands.
Not exclusively unique to the Central Coast of California, but in almost every state within the United States. Law enforcement entities are at war with the Mexican cartel, vying for control of America's drug trade.
When it started to happen close to 10 years ago, and we saw this cultivation problem growing at an alarming rate throughout the whole state of California, we in Fish and Game were thrown into it for environmental reasons as well as public safety reasons.
Those who sponsor elaborate marijuana grows on American soil, especially the Mexican cartels, exploit the vulnerable, hold hostage the innocent, destroy ecosystems, kill wildlife, and threaten with deadly force anyone, including law enforcement, who seek to thwart their illegal activities.
We figure between 5,000 and 6,000 illegal immigrants or nationals in these forests, working these gardens, and most, if not all of those 5,000 to 6,000 are armed with some weapon of some sort.
When John Norris first embarked upon a career with the California Department of Fish and Game, he never envisioned himself a tactical operator at war with violent Mexican cartel members. Like other wardens around the country, their primary focus is on enforcing fish and game codes. In the minds of most citizens, they catch poachers.
These cultivation operations going on in our public lands, not only in California, but throughout the rest of the country as well, are becoming some of our biggest wildlife poachers and destroyers of our environment.
In the last 10 years, John Norris has been part of a multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional team known as the MET, or Marijuana Eradication Team.
Before, everybody was trying to work separately to accomplish a goal, and it just wasn't working. And finally, the light bulb went off that, hey, we all need to work together to accomplish this, and if we do, we will.
This team is made up of various entities of law enforcement, including but not limited to the Santa Clara Sheriff's Office, the California Department of Fish and Game, and even helicopter support with the Air National Guard.
We do the felony marijuana portion of it, and they do the environmental crime portion. And together, that package hits them hard, a lot harder than, just doing one or the other.
Wherever you want these guys to help you out when you're bringing loads back, just put them to work.
The role of this team is clear. The mission and objectives of those that serve it unequivocal. To catch, arrest, and prosecute those responsible. To find, confiscate, and destroy illegal and dangerous grows. To reclaim, regenerate, and restore the land to what it once was.
We're only getting a small portion of it. There's hundreds of these out there.
A reserve officer for 3 years before he made it onto the force, Sergeant John Spagnola moved through the ranks, working in almost every facet on the department, from patrol to SWAT, detective, to special operation assignments, like the one he is presently engaged in.
One of our fortes is being out stalking, and that's pretty much what you do in this job. You're stalking people that are out in the woods, that are living out there. So it's a very dangerous job.
Some of these go on for 10 years before they're detected. Some of them are never detected. Some of them we get lucky and find the first year they're out there.
We took out a guy that he's sleeping in a tent. He had 2 loaded rifles, and he had a loaded pistol in his waistband when I pulled him out of the tent. And he's 500 yards or less, maybe even 400, from a science camp where these kids are being bussed in every day, and they have no clue.
Sometimes people go missing or people go on a hike and they never come back. Well, is that an accident or did they run into some of these people? And many times we never know what happened to those people.
Hunters and fishermen find more of this stuff than probably any other public entity out there besides law enforcement.
The thing that infuriates me the most about these gardens is I've actually come in contact with hunters whose families have hunted areas for generations. And they tell me now that they're so worried about these drug cartel gardens in their areas, they don't hunt there anymore. That makes me angry. I mean, I want my kids to be able to go out there without fear of running into armed criminal gunmen and just enjoy the outdoors. I mean, that just takes it away from everyone. It's out of control.
It is a serious problem. This is the stereotypical 60s, 70s era grower out trying to make a buck by selling a little bit of pot or growing for personal use or anything out in the forest. These are organized drug groups out of Mexico that are violent. They have no respect for wildlife. They have no respect for humanity in many ways. They bring in toxic pesticides that aren't even legal to possess in this country that are deadly if ingested or touched, and they will shoot you.
There's a lot of violence that are associated with these people, and they don't really discriminate whether it's against themselves, against the public, or against law enforcement.
Our team has been in 3 officer-involved shooting incidents, 3 gunfights with these groups in a 5-year period, right here in the Silicon Valley of the Bay Area, California. And that is unheard of in a law enforcement team's career to have to get into situations like that.
Armed with weapons, booby traps, and sophisticated means of communication, they are more than ready and aptly capable of inflicting violence upon anyone who threatens them or accidentally stumbles upon their operations.
We had a shooting back in 2005 when our team was just developing where one of our wardens was actually shot by an AK-47 round through both legs. And we had about a 3-hour air rescue wait for him, and he almost didn't survive. Fortunately survived that incident, but that was the first time any law enforcement officer had been counter-assaulted and shot in one of these marijuana gardens, and it happened to be a game warden. So our team definitely changed tactics at that point. It kind of woke the rest of the state up, and everybody doing marijuana eradication of how dangerous this stuff is, how organized these guys are, fronting this with infrastructure, with money, and there's so much money in it, so these guys are armed and they're even willing to fight cops in some cases.
Argue what you will about the legality of marijuana, but what these individuals are doing to the sanctity of nature and the environs of where families live and play are indisputable.
I don't think anybody would not be pissed off when they see the level of destruction we see in these cultivation operations, as an example.
The volume and type of pollutants found in illegal grow operations is staggering. Propane bottles, batteries, rat poison, thousands of feet of plastic tubing, human waste, needles, drug paraphernalia, garbage, fuel cans, backpack sprayers, and everything else can be found there.
Most people don't really realize how much impact that trash has, or how much those pesticides and chemicals, the poaching, there's a lot of environmental concerns, obviously, that are in addition to the public safety. But there's a lot of things that go on in a marijuana garden just beyond the growing of a marijuana plant.
You're also getting the illegal products that come up from south of the border. Pesticides like Furadan, like Metaphos, that are so poisonous, literally contact on skin can erode or eat skin, or ingested, they could kill you fairly quickly.
From these holding basins, miles of plastic tubing deliver life to thousands of marijuana plants being cultivated.
And they're lined with visqueen, and then they're filled with water. And then when they abandon these gardens, they just leave them behind. And what they don't realize is that water acts as an attractant to wildlife. And since those banks are so sheer and they have that plastic lining, the animals fall into these pits. They can only tread water for so long before they drown, or they just die of starvation in there because they can't escape. So it becomes a constant killer that doesn't go away. So as long as it's there, as long as the water's in there, as long as the plastic's there, it will just continue to kill wildlife.
With no regard for even the harmful toxins, they are subjecting those who buy the cultivated plants.
So that marijuana that has all that, toxic stuff they spray on it, is being sold out to the general public or shipped back east to somebody. They don't care if anybody gets sick or if somebody gets poisoned and dies. They don't care.
If the impact of those ingesting dope produced by dangerous pesticides were not enough, the health risk to those downstream of their operations is really frightening.
In 2 days, we're going to have torrential rain, and everything's going to be washing right down this drainage. And we're going to walk right up to pesticide bags, fertilizer bags, camp poisons, propane tanks, cooking oils, all of these waste products. And they're going right down to that nice creek we hiked past.
On one grow outside of San Jose, hidden almost in plain sight, within 1/8 of a mile from expensive homes, a public school, and citizens going about their daily lives, cartel members using sophisticated irrigating principles created a large slurry pond of chemicals by diverting a stream in a pristine wilderness area, a protected land. The land is environmentally sensitive because the mountain runoff flows into or otherwise creates the 13-mile stretch of river known as Arroyo Hondo that flows into the Calaveras Reservoir, the primary source of drinking water for San Francisco.
All those chemicals, all those illegal poisons that they're bringing into our state are flowing right down the creeks, right into the stream, right into that water source. And people are drinking it. I'm drinking it. People's kids are drinking it. I mean, it's just, I don't think people realize the extent of the damage that's really going on. It's not just nature and wildlife, it's also the citizens that are being poisoned by this.
Where they can find water and they can successfully get over on law enforcement's radar screens and get a successful crop harvested and processed, they're going to operate in.
Residual effects of poisons left in the garden. That bird right there probably hasn't died but a day or two ago, if that.
You go in and you see dead animals, you know, that from all the poisons that are left there, and the propane and the car batteries. It's crazy. I pulled car batteries out of streams.
Around these cultivation areas, fish and game wardens have found numerous dead animals, poisoned to death, killed or even harvested for consumption by those living at these sites.
The squirrel's using their bag to hide his acorns, right in a bunch of fertilizer. It's not good.
But they'll also purposely mix poison cocktails up and set them around the boundaries of the garden for animals that they think are going to be harmful to their plants. So these animals, especially up north, the bears will come in, they'll drink some of this toxic chemical that they bring in from out of the country, and then within a day or so, they're dead. I mean, this is highly toxic stuff that would kill people as well. And they set this stuff up around just willy-nilly to kill animals to protect their plants. And it doesn't go away. When they leave, they've harvested their plants, they just leave all those poisons there and they just continue to kill.
Today's the third step in a three-step process of marijuana eradication, which is called reclamation or environmental restoration.
The amount of debris, trash, and things that are left over from a marijuana garden is daunting. It's immense.
It never ceases to amaze myself and Sergeant Spagnola, my partner in the sheriff's office, and all of our team members, how much product these guys get into the woods and how they get it in.
We're not always sure if it's an accumulation of several years on top of each other, or if it's have 10 people walked on this trail every day for the last 2 months, just carrying in as much as they can possibly physically carry from the road, just to deposit to this one location so they can grow this massive marijuana garden. We don't really know.
And there's literally thousands of pounds of pipe, pesticides, propane bottles that are in there. And you just think that there's no way that people could have possibly hiked all that stuff into some of these canyons when it's 5-10 miles from the road.
Today we probably pulled 2 miles of black water line that was diverting streams and tributaries in the Arroyo Hondo River, and most of our day was spent just collecting that. Some of it's buried 8 to 10 inches underground, so it cannot be seen from the air from aerial surveillance.
They'll spend months and years hauling all this stuff in there. The garden might be 2,000 plants the first year. 3 years later, it's a 10 to 15,000 plant grow. They just keep adding on to it and carrying that stuff in there.
The sound of an Air Force Pave Hawk helicopter on the horizon as the sound of victory. Victory over terrain and the inhospitable.
And so when we talk to groups of people, when we educate them, they're always astonished. They're amazed that that much is going on and that much debris, when we show photos of an entire dumpster full of black flexible tubing from one marijuana garden, they're amazed that that was out there on their ranch or in their park that they take their children to.
Today, we completely restored one of the most damaged sites above that waterway to where it's pristine, restored, wildlife aren't going to be in danger. Somebody could walk through there and probably not even realize that there was this big eyesore of this illegal cultivation operation going on. And now we're going to go back tomorrow and we're going to hit several more sites that are just as damaged and are just as environmentally sensitive.
We may dismantle all the infrastructure and haul out all that trash, but all those trees have been trimmed and cut down. The trail has already been made. They already have the water source. They already know that they have the right sunlight. They already know that the area is set up basically to grow marijuana. We do have to routinely go back and check, not only for looking for new gardens, but we have to go back and recheck all those old ones as well, just to make sure that they're not starting them up again and taking advantage of the work that they've already done.
It is truly sad that today we must warn citizens within our own country about parks, hunting sites, and wilderness hiking areas that they should avoid because of illegal cartel activity.
In some of these larger parks and places where they know that this is occurring, they'll actually close parts of the park trying to protect the public, and they'll basically warn them, don't go in these areas because it's dangerous.
They're kind of staying a step ahead because they'll just put more and more efforts to defeat the numbers of guys we have out there. We have a limited number of hours we can work. We have a multitude of different job requirements we got to handle. We have a bunch of different tasks we have to handle. We can't just do marijuana eradication and chase those bad guys and then do the environmental reclamation. We have hunting seasons to deal with, fishing seasons. We have hunter education. Many of us are in service instructors to teach our new cadets. And my job is pretty diverse through the department. And I'm a supervisor looking over and monitoring and mentoring a squad of 5 young game wardens. So with all those different tasks at hand, and to go out and see that the amount of illegal cultivation just seems to be going up and up and up every year, it is frustrating on one hand, but it also kind of fuels that motivation to keep us in the fight, to keep on going.
It goes back to that public education. People just don't really realize the scope of this. They don't understand how prevalent it is and that it is out there, sometimes right outside their back door. And there are criminals living, they may even be killers for all we know, living only a few hundred feet from somebody's house all summer long, and they don't even know it until we fly over with a helicopter and we see that marijuana garden, and then we go in and try to deal with it and arrest those bad guys. And it is literally everywhere. People just don't realize how prevalent it really is.
Nothing motivates me more to want to go get these guys than to be able to restore that safety of the woods back to these families.
Fish and Game, between them and our agency, we really made an impact this year. This is my first year as doing it full time as the supervisor of the unit, and I can tell you, we've made a dent. Did we get all of them? By no means, but we made a huge dent.
What do I find important, and what is my prime concern is not only that the public is safe out there and no harm is coming to people that don't deserve it. Obviously, if there's no victimization by these violent people that do this, but our wildlife loss, our poison streams, that's my solitude. That's my balance. That's how I stay centered after all these years of doing this job. That's what inspires me to be healthy, physically fit, mentally healthy, is wildlife populations and wildlife areas and public lands that are untampered, that are a place to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and the speed that we have to run at in today's modern society. When I can get into the hills, whether I'm hunting or not, just enjoying what's out there and appreciating what's out there, that's therapy for me. When I know that's being destroyed intentionally and there's no respect for the stuff I enjoy and that the public enjoys, and that my children or my friends' children or grandchildren or family members may never be able to see because these guys are going to destroy it in a limited amount of time because it's so pervasive and so spread. That does enrage me in many ways. And at the same time, it also motivates me, I think more than anything else, to tackle that problem. And regardless of our outcome, I think we need to try. And I'm going to finish my career with that in mind. I've always given it that 110% push to make sure it happens.